good. I feel like the camera's too close to my face. There we go.
You look good though.
Thank you. You do too. Come
Thanks.
on, jewelry, brows. Let's get it. I had to put a
Trying.
hat on. The hair
Trying.
was not doing
It was
it.
a little rushed this morning.
Oh, what are you up to?
I went to a hot yoga class this morning. I feel like refreshed. I feel like my
Nice.
nervous system is like at homeostasis again, which is great.
Come on.
Yeah, I know. How's your morning going?
My morning, it's been cool. So like I posted a video late last night, and then this morning I woke up to a comment with someone like calling me arrogant, and like I know, and it's so weird because I think that I make videos that people in the music industry understand, but I am trying to market myself to either established or emerging artists who don't know how to grow in the music industry. And I think what I'm saying is like shattering the bubble for them. I think a lot of emerging artists tell themselves, if I just had the right manager, if I just had, the right person on my team. And I'm like, it's like managers aren't miracle workers. Like there's a lot of stuff you can do yourself, that you don't need a manager for. And I think that that might rub people the wrong way or like hurt feelings. And I was just like, oh, but it was really, I don't know, it was a moment where I was like, you have to practice what you preach. Because I have coached music artists through getting negative comments all the time, where I'm like, you need to focus on all the positive things people say. And it's like the positive outweighs the negative like way more than like 10 to 1. So it's like, don't focus on the one thing that someone says, and they weren't doing it in a hurtful way. But I think just someone calling me arrogant, that made me feel like it's like, oh, I'm talking like I'm full of myself when I'm just trying to educate y'all on what I know is the real,
It is kind of crazy because you can get like 20 positive comments of like praise, and then you get like one negative comment, and that's the thing that ruins your day, and you like completely forget that of all those like good things that happen.
Right.
So I get it. I'm the same way. It's like you hyperfixate on it.
Yeah, exactly. So, I mean, not to be a downer, that was just my morning this morning.
No, I feel you. I feel you.
But yes, everyone, this is Steph. This is my friend. We have been friends for I feel like over 2 years now.
Yeah, like 3.
And yeah, maybe three. Like, oh my gosh, the years are just rolling together. Like after COVID, the second we could step outside, like that's where I met you at, was AWAL had the represent her brunch or something
Did.
like that.
We did. We had our first, it was our first Represent brunch, and you came, and
Mhm.
so much for coming and supporting. And it was great. It was so much fun. I met so many like amazing people at that event.
Yeah.
But yeah,
Were you still at LVRN at
no,
that
I was
time,
at
or were you already at
AWAL.
AWAL?
Yeah.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. Yeah. I had like just started at AWAL. So it was I just celebrated. So it was 2 years because I just celebrated my 2 years at AWAL last week.
Yay! Wow. Our 2 year
I know.
anniversary.
I love it. I love it.
Me too. Oh my gosh. Yes, Steph is effortlessly stunning. I'm over here with the filters, with the makeup, the
I
whole
know.
thing.
I know. Trust me. So I went to a hot yoga class this morning. This is a sidebar. And if you've ever been to a hot yoga class, you know that you sweat like profusely. And I was like rushing home after. I like got coffee with my friend really quickly after. And then I was like rushing home to like get ready for this. And I was like, you know what you see, what you get is what you get at this point.
Right. Exactly. And we're loving it. We're loving
Thank
it.
you.
So, Steph, thank you so much for taking time today to jump on my platform to teach the people. So, I know that you're the Senior Director of Strategic Marketing, but I mean, brand partnerships might not be in your title, but you work a lot with brands. You help create the brand partnership creative and all of that kind of stuff. So I would love for you to introduce yourself. Tell us a little bit of your history at LVRN, what you were doing before that, what led you to AWAL, and what you're currently doing
Yeah.
here.
It's interesting. So yeah, my title is Senior Director of Strategic Marketing, and I oversee that team globally at AWAL, which is very fun. And I think what AWAL, the ethos of AWAL is like we do everything differently, and one of the reasons why it's strategic marketing and not necessarily brand partnerships is like there's a lot of we have a very robust developing roster, and we really believe in artist development. I really believe in artist development, and a lot of times those collaborations in the brand space don't necessarily look like sponsorship deals. They look like marketing, efforts, and it looks a little different. So, it's very, I come from a marketing background, so like I really enjoy that just I guess like practice or that part of the industry. And yeah, so we all build strategy for artists. Obviously, like we do sponsorship deals, but anything that like touches like a brand, an external brand, kind of falls under my purview. So it's
Right.
fun because a lot of people ask me like, what is your day-to-day like? And I'm like, literally every day is so different.
Hmm.
um and it's fun. Like I like the fact that not every day is the same and that every day is different, and you get to kind of touch a lot of things. And I've learned a lot like just on the job. My background is I started in management a long time ago, and I actually started my career in radio promotion, and it was interesting because I really didn't love it at the
Yeah.
time, and I was really passionate about marketing. Um, so I kind of expressed that, and at the time they didn't really have anybody that did partnerships, and they were like, oh, if you want to do this, like you can do it, but you kind of have to like teach yourself. So I kind of just taught myself the job, and then I ended up moving. I was at a management company that primarily worked with like rock artists, and I am very passionate about hip hop and R&B. I am a lover, a hopeless romantic. So I went to LVRN and I did creative marketing and brand partnerships across that roster. And then this opportunity at AWAL kind of opened up, and it was exciting to me because I got to kind of just like do more business development and manage people, and that was something that I hadn't done previously. And so I came into this role, and I've been here for 2 years, and now we're on this live.
I honestly feel like the role that you play is so unique. I feel like you have created your own lane, and I'm so happy that you've been able to do that because it's really about using your creativity effectively to help music artists. And you're a creative yourself. Like you are a classically trained pianist, you know what I'm saying? And like even you being like, I was working with rock artists, but my passion and love is for hip hop and R&B, so that's why I transitioned, over there. I just feel like that says a lot about who you are and what you're doing and the value that you bring to like every company that you're a part of, because I really don't hear of like strategic creative marketing. You know what I'm saying? Like that is like very hidden, very niche. I would never see that on a job posting. Like, that's
Yeah.
very much like she's in her own lane doing her thing.
Thank you. Yeah, I am, for better or for worse, I don't like being put in a box. And so I'm very fortunate in how my career has panned out, where I have been able to kind of create this lane for myself and get to work on like some really incredible projects throughout my career that I'm very proud of. So, yeah, I appreciate you saying that.
Of course, girly. So let's talk about some of those partnerships. I know that you just got like 2 Clio awards, or your campaign just got 2 Clio awards. I don't know how the Clios work. I don't know if they're given to people or like
The
or,
campaigns did, but yes, I'm credited on both of
yeah.
them.
So tell me about that campaign. Tell me what it was, who it was involving, how you executed it. I would love to know more.
Yeah, so one of the artists at AWAL is Little Simz, who has an EP out today, so you should go listen to it if you haven't already.
Come on.
And yeah, to be honest, like it was a full team effort. Like it's one of those moments in my career where like everybody at AWAL really came together and like surrounded themselves and like really like embraced that campaign. And kind of what happened was we got hit up by this like incredible music video director, Dave Meyers, and about potentially working with Simz. And one of the for better for worse parts of my job is like when you don't have money to do something, people come to me because they need money to do something.
Right.
And so we had a lot of conversations internally, and I have a long-standing relationship with Microsoft as a brand, and their deal structures are really interesting because they kind of build these like bespoke campaigns with artists, and I've done quite a few of them at this point that have been really fun. And so they were like, oh, we've like really wanted to work with her. Like, what can we do here? And we came up with this concept where, the music video, like Dave and Simz worked on the music video. It was phenomenal. It's like one of my favorite music videos of all time. But we worked with Microsoft to take essentially 30-second plates from different setups in the video. I think it was 8 or 9 of the setups. And we used that to create a first of its kind interactive music video experience that is still live. I think it's gorilla.littlesims.com. And yeah, we just did all this marketing around it. We had pop-ups in LA, New York, and London.
Wow.
I think the pop-ups in New York, or the pop-up in New York might still be up. And we did a billboard campaign. We did like a Q&A with Dave and Simz, and it was moderated by Jinx, which was really fun. And we also, at the same time, someone on my team had a really good relationship with BMW, and there's a line in the song that talks about a Bimmer. And we took it to the brand, and they used that video to kind of like as part of their launch campaign for the XM that BMW released last year. And it was just crazy. It was like,
right.
yeah,
Like,
it was like it was like quite literally the most perfect product placement I think I've ever like done. And it like actually perfect. That shot was like incredible. If you go back and watch the video. And so, yeah, we did this video. The video did really well. It's so funny because so many people, even to this day, like in so many meetings I've had recently, have been like, not knowing that like I worked on that campaign, have been like, oh my God, that video. Like I'll be like, oh, I work with Little Simz. They'll be like, that video was incredible, and I'll be like, it really was. Like,
it
but
really
she's stellar. She's stellar, and honestly, like the team, our creative team at AWAL is stellar. And it just was great, and it was a really fun thing to work on. And the video has won and been nominated for a myriad of awards globally in different markets, and we submitted it for the Clio Music Awards in two different buckets, one for the video and one for the campaign that we did with Microsoft and BMW, and we were really fortunate to actually win Clios for both. We won gold for the video and bronze for the campaign with Microsoft. So it was just fun. It's like probably my favorite campaign I've like ever worked on, and it was definitely like a career high.
Yeah, dude, it's so much collaborative effort, and it takes a lot for those many different minds, brands, everything to collaborate and to make one thing. And so I feel like it took like an ability to kind of have harmony with all sides to kind of make something like that happen. What do you think it was about Little Simz that made her attractive to brands to want to invest in her video and her vision that her and the director had?
That's such an interesting question. So first of all, she's just a phenomenal artist. Like she just truly is like a phenomenal artist who makes amazing music.
Yeah.
And I think that it's one of those things that like anybody who sees her live, like she's just magical. Like there's something magical about like her presence. Like I remember meeting her for the first time, and I was like starstruck in a way that I've worked in music for quite some time now, and
Yeah.
worked with very big artists, and it was just, she just has this like it around her that very few artists like have, and it just, yeah, I think that is what attracts everybody to her, like whether it's other creatives or brands or producers or whoever.
Yeah.
It's just this like special it that she has around her creativity that people like want to buy into. And in the brand space, like, she definitely has a lot of like tastemaker cosigns, like people, she has name recognition. And so people want to work with her because it's fun. She's just a fun project. Yeah.
Yeah. So she has kind of just built a good reputation for herself in the music industry that makes her like attractive and marketable to brands. Oh, hey, Leah, what's up, girl? Yeah.
Hello, Leah.
Thanks for joining.
Leah was the last person I spoke to before I closed my eyes last night to go to bed.
Oh, I love it. I know she just left LA, and I was happy that I was able to connect with her and see her before she left. I think that's like a huge move, and I think that we're kind of diving into a place where no matter what lane you want to work in, like we can do it remotely. Like the pandemic, has proved that we don't have to be like in these big places. Like I feel like last week was Grammy week, and so everybody was like, "Oh, I wish I lived in LA." I was like, "Bro, fly out here for Grammys and BET weekend. You're good. Like you don't have to like live here to be a part of it. Like, So it's definitely doable from wherever you are.
Yeah. Also, love
Um
Roma and love you, Leah. It's great to see you guys on here, and thank you for coming and supporting my our conversation. Um, yeah, it is. We definitely live in like a global world where you can like really do anything from anywhere, which I love.
honestly, because that's the life I'm trying to live. So what is kind of like the significance of brand partnerships in the music industry? I feel like everybody thinks about just like, I want brand dollars. Like they just want money. Like, I think my first experience with brand partnerships was getting artists like Fashion Nova deals back in the
I know, right?
day. Like, isn't that
How
crazy
far
that
we've
that's
come.
not even a thing anymore? Like, and that used to be like what all the artists wanted was a Fashion Nova deal. But yeah, I would love to hear from you, someone who has worked in it like before and who has been through like the evolution of it now. Just yeah, how do you feel like brand partnerships is significant in the music industry, and how can music artists make themselves more attractive to
Yeah,
brands?
I think it's interesting because when I started in partnerships, it like was still kind of a bad word in the music industry where people thought that like if you did partnerships, you were selling out and you were just like trying to have a money grab essentially. And it's
Right.
interesting how that shifted. And I think part of the reason is it's so much harder for artists to make money now off of their music. Like when we shifted into the
Mm,
streaming world, they were making sense on you know, the dollar for every one of their streams versus a record sale. And then it shifted to touring, and touring has just become so expensive for artists that even if you are like the Beyoncé's, the Taylor Swifts of the world, your production is so expensive that you're making a lot of money, but you're also not making as much as you used to. And so partnerships have become this kind of lane where artists can make money and like sustain their career. That, and I will say sync is also a really good way for them to do so. So I think that's part of it. And I think the other part of it is brands have, I think, shifted how they interact with influencers and artists and celebrities in
yeah.
that when you go back to the basics of marketing, it's all about storytelling and it's all about a product and a proposition. And it's the same thing in music as it is with a brand. You have a product that you're trying to sell, you have story pillars, the audience segmentation, all of the things. And
Right.
so um, brands, I think, have like also shifted a lot of their marketing to be like very organic. And that's the thing that I get the most with any of my clients when they're on the phone is like, we want this to feel organic. Like, do they wear the product? Can you send us like I literally like an artist will be like, oh, I want to work with whoever, and I'll be like, okay, like, do you wear them in your Instagram post like organically? Like, can we go back and like, or are you actually a fan? Like, if
Right.
you're a fan, what like products do you use? And like that's usually how you kick off a conversation. And so I think because brands have stepped away from like those straight sponsorship deals, like they still do them to some
Right.
extent, where it's like $1 million for you to be in a campaign, and it's shifted to be like, okay, like even if we're doing a sponsorship deal, we want it to feel organic to you. Like, what are the things that make you special as like an artist, a celebrity, an influencer, what have you? I think that's shifted how like artists view it, and they see it more as a way for them to make money to sustain their career, but also as a way for them to enhance their own storytelling and their own branding, like whether it's like in the fashion space, whether it's beauty, whether it's tech, like you know Simz and Microsoft, to go back to that for
Yeah.
a second, like she is what I would consider to be an incredibly innovative artist. And like there's a lot of chatter about around AI, and the online experience that we created was powered by AI, and it again was the first of its kind. No one had ever done that before. And so I think for an artist as like innovative and established in that space as she is, like that made sense for her brand. And yeah, I think that's like kind of the reasoning why it's become such a big hot topic in the music industry.
Right. Wow, no, and it's crazy to think that there was a time where having brand partnerships was taboo, and you were looked at as being a sellout, and now that's like
Yeah.
what everyone wants, like is brand partnership thing. That is so crazy to think about.
I mean, listen, pay artists what they're worth for music. Like we need to figure that out for first and
Right, we need to
foremost.
figure out how to
Like,
stop exploiting music artists
but
so
in the
that they can
meantime, we
actually
can
make
figure out
money.
how to use our other tools to make money and sustain our careers.
Yeah, I'm just very happy that regardless of how the music industry changes, because the music industry keeps changing because the people at the top don't want to share their money. So every time we find new
All
ways for
right,
like artists to get money,
say
yeah,
it.
like whenever our, like when we figured out streaming, when we figured out different ways to get our music out, to market ourselves and all of that kind of stuff. Now, UMG taking their music off of TikTok. I feel like that was such a huge power move that wasn't in the interest of the artist, but was just in the interest of the stakeholders at Universal Music Group. So I feel like that's like just a perfect example of how, no matter how much the industry changes and we try to adapt and change with it, the people at the top are always going to be worried about their money. So it's like you have to keep changing and being innovative and just strategic about, okay, what are other ways to get money? And yeah, the touring thing, that's another great thing that you brought up, how touring used to be like people's main source of income and now it's become so expensive to tour that it's just like, damn, like I can't even do that right.
Which is so sad because I don't know, like I love live music. I think that there's something magical about it. And I think that that's the difference between a kid sitting in their room making a 10-second sound clip that's going to go viral on the internet
Right.
and magic, which is what music is. And it's sad that so many artists like literally cannot afford to tour anymore. And again, like that's another thing where like brands can come in. Like a lot of brands have shifted and been like, oh, maybe we'll do tour sponsorship or maybe we'll do live events. And there are some really great partners that we've done some really cool things with in that space. But yeah, it's there is definitely a disconnect. It's not specific to the music industry. I think in any industry there's a disconnect between the people at the top and the people at the bottom
Right.
or the consumer, frankly. And so I really make a very concerted effort to like have my feet on the ground and like have people in my circle who are like developing artists and that I just like believe in.
Hell yeah. Right? Because that's another thing too, is when you work at companies, you kind of have to shift your alignment and you have to work on artists that you might not necessarily like or believe in, but if you're good at your job, you still know how to, make them attractive to brands, how to do strategic, marketing around them. But a lot of it comes down to the artist and what their ethos is and what they actually use to make them marketable to brand partnerships. So it just can't be like, I want to be in an Adidas campaign. It's like, okay, yes, but let's work this back. Let's reverse engineer it. But something really great that you said that I want to kind of transition to is like I want us to highlight the impact of out of home marketing because I feel like we are very much like all on our phones, all about digital marketing and all of that. But how can brand partnerships help with out of home marketing, in-person experiences? You said that there were pop-up activations that you've worked on. I would love for you to talk about maybe some of those, as well as how brand partnerships can help on tours as well, so that music artists can go perform their music and we still can have these live shows without them, going broke and like being discouraged from going out on the road.
Yeah, we live in such an interesting era. Like, it's just so, we're online. Like, we are online. We talk about online all the time. Digital marketing has become marketing, and for better or for worse. Again, like, there's pros, there's cons. And
Right.
it's just interesting because we were online before the pandemic, but I think in the pandemic, we were in the house exclusively online.
Yeah.
And so, even though before we had this kind of, we still had like a little bit of our like humanity and we still knew how to like interact with people and have conversations. Like I've seen so much of that be lost, especially in, I mean, in any city, but like even in LA. And so it's I it's interesting because there's like a balance of like being outside, where it's like, you know, you don't want to burn yourself out, but like
Oh my gosh, I burned.
me personally, yeah, yeah. But me personally, like I thrive in like smaller settings, one-on-one settings, and I really try to make a concerted effort with like people that I appreciate and fill me up to like be in those settings. But and more than that, like I think what brands have realized is like people are craving like social interaction and like being outside and like creating like a an event that's like not stuffy and industry and posturing is like so so valuable right now. And I think that there are like people who do that. They'll like, you know, there are like fashion brands that'll do like gifting suites. There will be brands that do like beauty brands who just do like pop-ups where you can go and there's like fun things to do. Like I went to a pop-up for the beauty brand like Ilia a couple months ago, and it was fun because they had like they had like this canvas in the middle of the event, and you could just like
Mhm.
pick up paint and like paint on the canvas. And I was like, I'm not a visual artist at all. Like I think I'm a creative, but like that's not my ministry and not something I'm good at. But it was just fun. It was like, and no one was. I mean, there was one girl who like definitely was, and I was like,
Yeah.
you can be on that side and I'll be on this side. But
Do your thing, girl.
yeah, and so like out of home and like doing pop-up events and meeting people in person, or like even just like outside of brand partnerships, like in an artist world, like having community, like
Yeah.
that is, you're attracted to an artist because they're speaking to you, right? And so
Right.
if there are other people who have that same sentiment and um lol, if there are other people who have that same sentiment and you're able to like connect with them, like it's invaluable, and like we as humans need connection. And so I think there's so much value to it. I think that there's something about like, I'm very into energy and just like that realm. And I think that like music and going to live music and like really seeing like a stellar artist for the first time, and like that feeling of like being around other people and who are just like feeling the same energy, like there's nothing like
Yeah.
it. And so like going to live shows, like going to shows at like really small venues with like artists that are up and coming, like there is value to that. And again, it's really expensive. Unfortunately, a lot of artists like can't tour that much because it's so expensive now. And so it's great to see like brands coming in and either like doing their own touring series in different cities. Like White Claw does that really well, and they do kind of like different events and they lean into musical artists in different
Yeah.
cities. You know, Soho House honestly also does that really well. And yeah, there's it's important, and I think that like we forgot that it's important, and then now that we're doing it again, we're realizing that we like should be doing it more. So
Yeah.
yeah, that in person is key. One thing I'll also say on that note, back to the community, is my team and I worked on this like case study around like the Barbie marketing last year, which is I think like one of the most incredible marketing campaigns like I've ever seen, just like generally, and
Right.
like the way that they created this like Barbie mania around it. And one of the takeaways that we realized was that people bought in so heavily into that campaign and they fed into it. And you know, they did like over 100 partnerships, both Mattel and Warner Brothers, and
Oh my
they really, their branding was on point. But people like wanted to be part of something,
Right.
so like organically, without even like really promoting it that much, fans who went, like people who went and saw the movie, like all wore pink. Like even if you weren't, even if you didn't like the movie, if you didn't even feel the type of way, like I have one pink outfit and I wore it to go see that movie because it's just the thing that you did, and it was fun and it was a thing to do.
Yeah.
And it was interesting to kind of like look at that and see how like people crave it so badly, but like we've forgotten how to do it. And so
Right.
there's so much value in like either whether you're creating it online or in person. And I think human connection again is like
Right.
important. Um, Community is like key as like marketers and as for brands and all of that.
Yeah. I I feel like we are so siloed and isolated after the pandemic that we absolutely crave inclusion, and we have forgotten, like you said, just kind of how to be social, because we've just gotten very content like being by ourselves, and mostly because we were forced to be by ourselves, so that taught us to be comfortable being alone, like before the pandemic, I feel like everybody was outside. You were outside all of the time. It wasn't like draining on your energy. Like literally last week, I went to 3 events in a row, Thursday through, or no, Tuesday through Thursday. And then I was so burnt out that I didn't go to any events for the rest of the weekend. And those are probably the most popular events, like all the brunches and all of the club nights and all of that. But I just like did not have the energy to do it. And I'm like, dang, how did I used to do this when I was younger? But, I really don't know. I really don't know where the energy went or where that came from. Um, but I want to ask you, because it sounds like the way that brand partnerships work, it's not like they have a brief where they're like, we need this kind of artist, or maybe they do for like in-house stuff. But it feels like a lot of the best brand partnerships that you've worked on or been a part of are like organic, original concepts that come from the artist, and they just have to find alignment with like the right brand. Would you say that is accurate,
Like
or how
both
it
and.
goes?
So I when you work with like a really big artist, it's a lot of times it's like we want to work with them,
Right.
and it's a lot of like negotiation, more straight sponsorship deals. Not all the time, like there's still like building that relationship and etc. But like, I think that the two things that brands look for are like aggregate reach and social currency. And so certain artists or cultural cachet, sorry, aggregate
Mm,
reach and cultural cachet. I think some artists fit into that cultural cachet um, bucket where they're just like cool and tastemakers and brands want to work with them. And then there are people who just have really large audiences and brands are like, especially if you're running a brand awareness campaign and you're launching a product, like that's a perfect type of artist or celebrity to
yeah,
engage with.
yeah,
Um, and, for reach.
right,
Um, so there's still that, but I have over the past few years worked mainly with people in like the developing space or people who might not be like perfect for like those big sponsorship deals. And in that case, like we have to get creative. We have to build strategy. Like we're growing with them. We're doing small things. Like they're playing the game. They're, going to their events and they're posting them online organically and I'm sending it to the brand and there's that. And then sometimes there's just like artists who have it's everything, right? So there are artists who just like have ideas and they're like, we can't afford to execute it. Like I'm like, okay, like well let's see if we can find someone to kind of like that naturally aligns with you who would want to be part of this. So it's interesting because it's a both and. I think in my specific case, like the thing that fills me up most and the thing that I enjoy doing most in my career is more of those bespoke campaigns where I really get to like be a
right.
marketer. Listen, we love money, we love a sponsorship deal, but it's just a different skill set. It's a different part of my brain that you
Yeah,
use. So it's a both and situation. It's definitely not like siloed to either.
right. Okay, I feel that. And just so you guys know, anyone dropping questions, we're gonna have a Q&A portion at the end, so I'm not ignoring you. I just don't want to interrupt the conversation me and Steph are having. But we will, if you drop your questions, there's a little question mark at the bottom. If you click that and put your questions there, then I'll be able to answer them when we get to the Q&A portion of this. But I want to discuss like emerging trends and opportunities in brand partnerships, because I just feel like metrics are kind of they're I don't feel like metrics are a way to prove yourself to brands, but then I know speaking with you, there's like a certain threshold. Like if you don't have a certain amount of followers, you're just not going to be able to be like attractive to brands to pitch them. So it's kind of like what do we do? How do we meet in the middle? Like I'll give you an example. An artist that I work with, her name is Ayana. She loves Sims. And so she has posted organic content about Sims. Like she's been playing Sims all of her life. So she's posted about them organically, some posts with her music, some funny posts, whatever. But I would love to know just from like where she is now as an artist, if I wanted to pitch her to Sims, what's some stuff that we could be doing to make her, more attractive, and what are some trends that you're seeing from the brand side that is making, artists with micro influence, especially in this UGC culture? You know what I'm saying? Like, let me know what your thoughts are on that. Sorry, I feel like that was a very
No, it's a good question. There are like different brands look for different things. So there are brands again like there's aggregate reach, cultural cachet, but there's also just like some brands like really want to get in early on an artist and be like, oh, I'm the tastemaker. Like I saw them first, and they have different programs for that. And so, you know, video games, for example, like do a lot more in the sync world than they do in the partnership world, where that's how they incorporate and that's how they kind of not, it's kind of low risk for them almost to be like, oh, I'm putting your music in the game or in a pack or what have you, like whether it's like FIFA, the FIFA soundtrack or whatever. And a lot of times like that first step like grows into something as the artist grows. And sometimes it's just like finding people who are fans of you. Like there are some artists that I work with and there are brands and they're like, I personally am like a huge fan of them, but like right now I can't like justify this or it's not the right opportunity, and you keep that conversation going. And like so many times in my career have we like started conversations, I've pitched artists, we've had conversations, and like a year and a half later it's like kismet, and it's like something comes in that's perfect for them, and like we are able to do a campaign, and it's, you know, really rewarding and fun because you've been working on it for so long. You know, I would say like don't get discouraged. It's one of those things where even like the biggest artists in the world, you know, are competing for like the same slots, and there are very minimal amounts. But yeah, I think like being able to show that what you organically love, what you interact with, like as you grow as an artist, is like important. But it's also important to remember that like if you're an artist, like your art comes first, and growing that community and fan base, like everything else will come. And it's good to like identify early on the things that you like, but at the same time, it's like, you know, you also need to like build your audience and foster community and like, you know, be in people's faces and all of that. And I think that's also like important to just an artist overall artist proposition, but even in the brand conversation, any partner facing conversation.
I feel you. I feel you. So I think
Big
that
sigh.
you said what?
Big sigh.
I know, big sigh. Just like I'm trying to figure this out for myself, you know, for artists that I work with, because a lot of the brand partnerships that I've had were, of course, with my time with like Doja or even, you know, Aaron Ray. Like Aaron Ray isn't an emerging artist by any means, but he's also not like a global pop icon, you know? So I've had one-off partnerships with like Trident or, you know, different things where it just really feels like you just have to have a team that's constantly pitching you. So I'm like, for indie artists who don't have the major label support or don't have a team that's constantly pitching them, you know, how could they make this shake for themselves? And so I was kind of hoping that in the world of user generated content that it would be a little bit easier and that brands would have dollars for things like that.
I think it's interesting. So I'll give you an example. So if you live in LA, you're really familiar with the grocery store Erewhon, which, you know, you love it, you hate it, however you feel about it. And they very notoriously and infamously have this like Hailey Bieber milkshake, or not milkshake, smoothie, whatever it's called. And kind of how that came to be was like she would just go to Erewhon and like order a smoothie, and she started posting her order, and as she was rising and as her profile was rising, they clocked it, and eventually it turned into like they have a Hailey Bieber smoothie now. And so there are things where it's like, you know, it is, partnerships is a thankless job on both like anybody who's pitching you or the artist side, but like, you know, keep going. Like if you like something, you like something. If you only wear Adidas, don't be mad that they're not giving you a partnership and like stop wearing them. Like you like it because you like it. And at some point you can look back and be like, for 4 years I've been wearing you in every Instagram post. I've arrived now. Like, can we do something? And it can be discouraging. Don't be discouraged. The other thing I will say is like a lot of those like one-off smaller deals a lot of times are like agents will get like a brief and it'll be like a really big artist, and there'll be like a myriad of like smaller opportunities to support that bigger campaign. And I think what agencies do really well is they're really good at pulling from that developing roster to be like, oh, a 5K, a 10K deal. And so sometimes it might not be like your label or an independent brand person or your manager. Sometimes it's like keep talking to your agent, and most artists have like a booking agent.
Mm.
So yeah, there's a lot of different ways. There's no one size fits all. And sometimes it's like, you know, I've worked with artists who like really love, I work with an artist right now who like really loves beauty brands, and she just like organically posted about this beauty brand, and like the post ended up getting like millions of views and likes, and I went and took it to the brand and I was like, hey, just like a heads up. And they were like, oh my God, like we want to do more with her. Like, can we gift her? We don't have anything for her right now, but like maybe sometime in the future. And you know, sometimes it's just not now, it's in the future,
Right.
but you know, keep on keeping on.
A no is not a no forever. It's just a not right now.
That is true. That is true.
I feel you. Okay, so questions from our Q&A portion. So we have Ola in here, and she is asking, how would you approach a brand you don't have a relationship with, and what are the best steps to take to build a relationship with that brand?
You should have something to talk to them about. Like sometimes it's like, you know, a lot of times in my case when I've like reached out cold to a brand, it's been like, oh, an artist is a really big fan in X, Y, and Z. And I'll use that in my initial email. Like I'll say like, this artist really likes you. They wear you in all of their posts, or they like here, like here are the receipts. And you know, here's their reach so that it like grabs their attention. Sometimes I might mention like other artists that I work with that might be bigger, that, maybe that's like the avenue within which to start that conversation. The one thing I will say is like, you need to be respectful of your partners at all times. And so something I've learned is like, if they're saying no to something, and keep that relationship and be respectful of that no. And you don't know what's gonna like, to what you just said, like it's not, a no isn't always a no, it might change. And so I think just keeping that in mind and like being respectful of your partners, building like true relationships with them, being like good business
Yeah.
partners is a really good way that like eventually down the line you can work on something together. A lot of the professional is personal, and especially in this industry, a lot of times those overlap, and so just never know.
Yes, I feel like that saying like it's not personal, it's just business cannot apply in the music industry at all. This is all personal. Like whether you're an executive, whether you're an artist, any of this, it's all very personal. So I don't know. I feel like with me when it comes to relationship building, I'm very big on energy and stuff too. Like I don't have transactional relationships. It doesn't mean that I can't just work with people who don't want to be my friend. It's like, no, but I feel like in this industry, a lot of people try to front like they're your friend because they feel like they'll get better work results. And it's just really like knowing how to navigate those kinds of relationships. You can be friendly, you know what I'm saying? But it's just kind of like, I don't know. I had to learn that for myself because I came from television where we don't have time for that. Like, we're just very direct. Like, we have a time limit that we have to get this show done. Nobody's feelings gets hurt. And I feel like
Mm-hmm.
when transitioned into music, so many feelings. Just like like
All
I
the
did
feelings.
not, just all the feelings. I just didn't know how
Yeah.
to talk to people because I'm like, bro, I gotta say this in a certain way to get a certain result. Like I can't just say what I need and you not be offended by it. And it's like, no, you can't.
Yeah.
Off topic rant. Okay, next question. How do you create a culturally relevant campaign with a brand that doesn't necessarily see the vision at the onset, but want to promote their brand through the artist and does that make sense? Do you want me to reread
Yeah.
that?
Maybe reread it one more time.
Okay, so how do you create a culturally relevant campaign with a brand that doesn't necessarily see the vision at the onset, but want to promote their brand through the artist and campaign?
That's a that's a
Yeah,
tough one.
my work.
I know it's a tough one.
This
I
is how
mean,
you come up with these partnerships.
yeah, I know. Well, if a brand really wants to work with you, like if they really want to partner with you, like you have a little bit of leeway to be like, all right, like maybe you can't meet me 100% where I am, but like can we meet in the middle somewhere? And I think it's important to have those conversations. Sometimes it doesn't align, and sometimes it's okay to be like, maybe not now. Maybe this isn't the thing right now, but like we're still a fan and we'll find something in the future. And that's okay to say. Like, you know, plenty of artists I work with have been like, we've had a deal come in and they've just been like, it's just not the thing right now. We really want to work with them. And a different opportunity comes through like down the line and it makes more sense. And, you know, brands and artists get told no all the time. So it's okay. I think like it's important again, like be respectful of your partners, don't force something. Um, and so I think like listen to them. Like if they're like, no, this is what we want to do and it doesn't align with you, like again, maybe it's just not your time and that's okay.
Yeah, definitely. Um, on that kind of like same note, when you are cold emailing or reaching out to brands, what do you include in your outreach emails? Like, what's a checklist?
I introduced myself. I introduced like where I work, who I work with, what other artists I work with. And then usually there's a specific ask. So I very rarely will just be like, I want to contact at this brand, let me reach out. It'll be like, oh, I have this artist. I think they would be good for you. Um, People love to be complimented. And so I think doing your research and being like, oh, this campaign you did was like really phenomenal. I'm a really big fan of it. I work with this artist. Like, here's a little bit about them. Sometimes it's like, oh, we have this upcoming project and we think that this would be a great idea. Like, we would just love to like hop on the phone and like kind of talk through it. My goal whenever I'm like cold outreaching is like, first of all, you're like not going to hear back like 90% of the time. But also it's like an ideal scenario is like we set up a call and we can get on the phone because there's
Yeah.
so much more that I can do in that setting where I can react to what you're saying and I can pitch it and I can be on my toes and that is the job, baby. So that's like ideally like the goal. But if not, sometimes they'll reach back out and they'll be like, hey, thank you so much for reaching out. We don't have anything for you at this time, but stay in touch. And I will stay in touch at that point. I'll you know, if something else comes up, I'll hit them up. And, you know, if they don't respond, they don't respond. But
Right. And who are you reaching out to at the brands? Like, do you
it's
just go
so
on
different
kind of
depending on the brand. Yeah, it's just called something different at every brand. Some brands it's like the influencer marketing person. Some brands it's like the marketing person. At a lot of consumer, like a lot of CPG brands, like it's the brand manager, but they're going through an
yeah.
agency. But like if you build your relationship with them, they can kind of direct the agency, and you're like the influencer agency who's doing the deals like in your direction. And so it's so varied. It's like so varied by brand.
Yeah. Got you. Because they don't want people reaching out to them for partnerships. They're like, we'll find you if we're interested. Huh?
Yeah. But sometimes it's interesting because there have been times where I've like reached out and I've been like, they've been like, oh my God, like we love your roster. We like didn't really know where to start with this. Like, can we, yeah, let's hop on, let's chat. Or like, you know, it's interesting. Sometimes they'll be like, I'd never heard of that artist that you reached out about, but I look them up and like, this is kind of perfect. So it can both end. I will say like, again, like that ideal scenario happens like 5 to 10% of the
Right.
time. You don't hear back most of the time, but it's a numbers game and, you know,
Yeah.
manifest what you
So
want.
people just have to really get comfortable with hearing no. Because you're
I
going to
get
hear,
told no
right.
every day,
You're going to have
multiple times a day.
more no. So another question, how do you manage artist expectations who want to work with a brand, but the brand doesn't necessarily think they align? Did we answer this already?
No, but I can answer, well, kind of, but I can answer it really quickly. Honestly, like, it's just a matter of explaining. Like, you know, sometimes like we'll have artists that be like, I really want to work with X brand, and I have a relationship with X brand, and
Mm-hmm.
I'll be like, they work with X artist, and like you aren't that, you aren't their demographic.
Right.
Happy to send an email, happy to, but I'm not gonna, you know, I'm not gonna blow up my relationship with them for something that I know that they don't want to
Hmm.
do. And so there's like a kind way to say that to an artist, and I like have had to have that conversation so many times
Right.
that I'm used to it at this point. But sometimes it is like, you know, I can wear like Adidas because like we've talked about them all day, but like it is so determinant on like what their priorities are, their overall marketing, who they're trying to reach, the types of campaigns that they're doing. Like again, there's like an element of like the stars kind of have to align for you to be able to work together. And if an artist doesn't understand that at that point, I kind of am like, well, it is what it
Yeah.
is.
Yeah. There's only so much responsibility you can take on for how an artist like reacts to something. Oh wait. Oh, I forgot I can make them pop up on the screen. How do you organically build storytelling between the artist and the brands? Ooh.
It's kind of like what we were saying earlier, where if you really love something, like post about it, like tag them in your Instagrams, tag them in your stories. Like I have an artist who really wants to work with a brand, and we were talking about it last week, and I was like, oh, like you wear them all the time, and he goes, no, I've made my own commercials for them and posted them online,
Wow.
and I was like, what? And he's like, yeah, I've like taken them down, but like he was like, I want to work with them. He was like, I like use them in my guerrilla marketing. I like make my own little like PSAs for them. And I was like, that's
Yeah.
amazing. I was like, send me everything. Like, let's do this. But it's kind of like, okay, like genuinely the only reason you wouldn't want to work with him, someone who's like so obsessed with you, is that it's either just like you don't have the budget for it and you're like not doing partnerships, or that you're not big enough, because like you clearly align at that point.
Yeah. Yeah. Okay. I love that. I'm like, sorry, I was thinking of something while you were talking. And I thought you were gonna keep going, and I'm like, wait.
All
I
good,
didn't
all
have my
good, all
question.
good.
But developing marketing strategies, I feel like, is very huge. That's what I wanted to ask about. I want to ask about, I feel like a lot of the brands that sponsor tours are like alcohol brands and things like that. What has been your experience with like locking in sponsorship for tours? And where do you feel like music artists have to be in their journey to kind of get that kind of support?
It super depends. And also like it's interesting because it's more likely that like people will sponsor like one-off shows or events, and like tour sponsorship, a lot of tour sponsorship usually goes through agents. It doesn't really go through labels, and it's because like there are legalities around like the ability to be able to book an artist for a show, which you are very
Yeah.
familiar with. So to be completely transparent, I haven't done a ton of like full tour sponsorships because I don't work at an agency and I don't want to get sued, but um, like a lot of times, yeah, it's alcohol. But the interesting thing about alcohol is there are so many rules and regulations and laws in the US about alcohol sponsorships. And even more so, like there's that baseline. Like sometimes I'll have an artist. This is so funny. I have this conversation all the time where people will be like, I want to work with an alcohol brand, and I'll be like, oh, are you over the age of 26, and is over 72.3% of your audience over the age of 21, which is like legitimately the law to be able to partner with them.
Yeah.
And I said that in a meeting once, and everyone laughed, and I was like, I'm not kidding. Like I'm like being so serious right
Why are you
now.
guys
Like
laughing?
yeah, and then even then, like because it's like an illicit substance, so many alcohol brands have like very stringent rules about who they partnered with. Have you ever had have you ever had handcuffs on you? Like have you ever like had a DUI? Like anything that you're felony DUI, like that's automatically books. Have you been open about like having issues with sobriety? Like they don't want to promote these things, that these negative connotations. And that's for any brand. I think the difference between like cannabis and alcohol and everything else is like there is, you know, weird sentiments towards it, especially in North America. So it's interesting. It's a both and, where like sometimes that is where the money is. Like when
Yeah.
the pandemic hit and every like people weren't spending money because they weren't working, they were getting laid off, alcohol sales went up. So alcohol brands were like the only ones that were
Dang.
doing partnerships at the time. But then it's like they work with so specific and few artists that you're like, and then also there's this balance that I experienced. This is a little tangent, but like last year everyone was like, we're going to go into a recession. And I was like, great. And so brands were like, we're not spending money. And I was like, okay,
Right.
like we're
Right.
that's what it is. It's, you know, it's based on the economy. We've not gone into a recession, and people are like buying, pardon my French, like shit out the wazoo. And so I did this massive partnership with a brand last year, and I hit them up to see like what we can do this year. And they were like, to be honest, we're not spending money on partnerships because people are buying the product. We don't need to right now. And so it's like we've overcorrected to that end where they're like, our sales are up so much. And that's what happened with alcohol brands in the pandemic, where like their sales were so high in comparison to like everybody else, that they were like, I mean, yeah, we could do partnerships, but like we also can just like keep our profit margins the way that they are, and like keep all this money for ourselves, and have bonuses and all of this. And so it's like a
Yeah.
balance. And it's hard because I'm like, damn, last year everyone was telling me like they didn't have bread. Now this year everyone's like, we have too much of it, so we can't do anything about it. So yeah, it's interesting. That was just a little rant, but yeah, it's tour sponsorships hard. A lot of times agencies deal with it, but yes, alcohol brands love events, and I think it's because like those are places where people are drinking.
Perfect. So I guess I want you to just kind of leave off because we can wrap up. It's almost 11, but I want you to leave off with just a word for aspiring music for professionals, emerging music professionals, independent music professionals who might not have the support of an AWAL, an Orchard, an Empire, just doing it all on their own with fucking CD Baby at the house. Like, what advice would you give them when seeking brand partnerships and developing even just like marketing strategies for their products to make themselves like increase their cultural equity and like, prove their value?
I think it's everything we said previously. Like, figure out what your artist proposition, figure out what it is you want to say, make your music, make your art, build your storytellers, really figure out what your audience segmentation is, who your audience is, how to talk to them. Um, those basic tenets of like marketing and like consumer behavior and marketing strategy that you like learn in school, like that doesn't change.
Yeah.
The tools change. And so like, you know, you have TikTok that you can use, you can Instagram, but like your goal shouldn't be, oh, I want a viral moment on TikTok. Like that's not the marketing goal or
Right.
objective. Like the objective is to grow your audience and have people who like will feed into all these different parts of your business. Like they'll buy tickets, they'll stream your music, they'll buy merch. Like that's the ideal profile for an audience. And I think like take the time to figure that out. But at the same time and in the same breath, it's like, you know, any artist I work with, even on like the smaller scale, I have like a brand questionnaire I'll have them fill out. And it's also sometimes just, and it's something that they have to really do like every 6 months because it very quickly becomes outdated. But it's like also so interesting. And I call it a personality questionnaire because sometimes I just have questions on there of like, do you X, do you Y? You learn so much about them and about their brand and what they like. And like as an artist, a lot of times you're like selling yourself.
Yeah.
And you know, it is so don't skip those steps. Like do that. That's so important. It's important to also be like, I eventually want to work with X. I eventually want to work with Y. Um, there is an artist that I have worked with for a couple years now, and she's just having like a moment, and we've been building all this strategy for like 2 years, and it's all hitting right now. Um, and it's fun and it's rewarding because I'm like, wow, like the whole team, and it's not just me, the whole team did the work. She did the work, and like now 2 years later, like I can point to things and be like, wow, like it looks like that happened overnight, but that was 2 years in the making. That was like 18 months in the making, or like I've been having this conversation for a really long time. So
Yeah.
just keep doing that as an artist. And I also think like um the thing that like have human connection. Like, take the time. Don't just like walk into a room and work your way through it. Like,
Yeah.
no one's ever gonna hit you back. Like, remember what people tell you. Remember what people tell you about themselves. Like, ask people how their day is going. Like, there are so many people that I ran into like last week, Grammy week, who like maybe recently had a kid, or like maybe like they got married, or like something happened, and like the first thing I said isn't like, oh, tell me about your job. It's, oh my God, like, how is being a parent? Or how is, oh, you're in a new job, like maybe I'll ask about that. But it's like, take the time to like build that connection in the industry with people that you meet. You never know where people are going to land. This industry is really small. People move around all the time, even in the brand space. Like, I will have people get laid off from a brand, and I will still take them out to lunch and ask them about their life, and like be present and like, their friend, and like care, because you
Right.
never know where they're going to land. And so like, you
Yeah.
don't want to be the person who's like, you're not working at Coca-Cola anymore, I can't talk to you. And then they show up and they're working at Pepsi a week later. Like, you know
Right.
you never know. And I think that it's like so important to be authentic to yourself, and it's so important to like care about other people and take the time, and that's like what will set you apart.
Yeah, absolutely. Girly, I love this. Everything that I'm hearing from you, it really, I feel like it just comes down to music artists being entrepreneurs for real. Like all of the stuff that you're talking about, like strategically posting content, like all of these things, you have to have a business mindset. You have to have an entrepreneurial mindset. You cannot be afraid to fail because entrepreneurs are not afraid to fail. They have to do something because when you fail, you learn from it. So then you can just, redo it and redo it better. So I think that that is just really the big mindset shift that is going to set apart casual artists who like make a couple songs and then don't take off and give up on their dream from like professional artists who have been doing this for 10 years or 14 years, like Victoria Monet, who has been in this industry for 14 years and just won Best New Artist.
You know what's like, just total sidebar, like I was watching the Grammys on Sunday night, and like there's the good, the bad, and ugly.
Yeah.
And so
We can also
um
sidebar about that, girl. It don't have to be all about brand. You my friend. Like,
yeah,
fuck.
so they were like announcing best new artists, and I've had this like struggle with music, and you and I have talked about this offline, where I'm like, artists, especially in the era of social media, are like being forced to over produce, and like they're not creating like as good of a product anymore. And like,
Yeah.
I had this whole rant that I've had to 11 people like in the past 3 weeks, where I'm like, I was like in a bar 3 weeks ago, and like the bartender was playing like all 90s, early 2000s, like female R&B, and like
Uh,
That Boy's Mine came on, and I was like, a song like this doesn't exist in 2024. All that context to say, Victoria Monet is like one of the few artists this past year who had like a phenomenal project, and it spoke to me. And like, the video for On My Mama is probably one of the best videos that's come out. I mean, the Simz video was also very good, but like in the past couple of years, so just like everything about her. And like, they're announcing best new artist. I'm watching with my friends, and I was like, I really hope Victoria Monet wins. And she won, and she gets on stage, and she's like, again, I've been doing this for 15 years. This was not overnight. I've been like um she's been a songwriter. She obviously has like crazy accolades in that space, and has worked with quite literally the biggest artists in the world, and is very respected by the artist community. But it was so interesting in her speech to hear her say, like, even with that, I had a binder, and I pulled up to a record label, and they said no to me, and I cried about it. And she was like, and my manager like ended up finding it. And um I here we are. I won Best New Artist, and just 15 years in the making. And like, you could just tell in that moment that she had worked so, like, I don't know. There was something that happened in me in that moment, where I was like, it is so beautiful to see this not go to a viral artist over the past year, and go to someone who has like genuinely taken the time to build this phenomenal piece of work, and this like that stands the test of time. Um, and it just was, it was like it gave me hope in an era of music where I'm like, what are we doing sometimes?
yeah.
And it was just really, really fun to watch and see.
Right. 'Cause honestly, The gag is the title of her album was Jaguar 2, which lets you know that there was a Jaguar before this, which lets you know that she is not a new artist by any means, but by industry standards for where she is at in her walk. Had at any other time, had she tried to nominate herself as Best New Artist, she might not have won. It wasn't her time. You know what I'm saying? Like, it's all about relationships, because who votes on Grammys is the Recording Academy. So when people get upset about someone not winning Grammys, you're upset at the Recording Academy. And I feel like something that has happened, I'll end with this, because Beyonce being snubbed from having Album of the Year when like
Can't
artists
talk about it.
when artists have accepted that award and in their speech been like, Beyonce, this belongs to you. I don't even know why I'm here. Like, so freaking crazy. But I think it's because everybody thinks somebody else is going to vote for her. So let me vote for this artist. You know, like
Crazy.
everybody
I'm like,
thinks.
listen, I'm not gonna hate on other artists because I don't think this is the forum to do that. But I'm like, you're telling me we changed how we did business in the music industry when she put out self-titled. We used to put albums out on Tuesdays. She decided, I'm going to put out a surprise album out on a Friday with a full visual with it. And we now put out albums on Fridays. It fundamentally changed how we did business in the industry.
Right.
Like, Lemonade has gone on, obviously, to like inspire. Like, I remember the year Lemonade came out, which she really got snubbed that year. And any TV show you would watch had like a reference to that. I remember that year for Halloween, me and my two best friends were different versions of Beyonce from that album. I was Formation. Yeah. And one of my friends was Hold Up, and then the other one was the white dress song. It's escaping my mind. But I was like, and I remember going out on Halloween that night, and like I saw so many Beyonces that night, and I was like, this is one
With
of
the
the
yellow
most like
dress,
people.
with bat, just so
Yeah,
many different.
like
Right.
Swarm, which obviously was a phenomenal TV show that came out this year, was like wildly inspired by that album and the Beehive. And I'm like, yeah, like give people their flowers. I mean, Jay-Z wasn't wrong, but we can end on that.
We can end on that. Thank you so much, Steph. I love you so much.
Thanks,
This has
Jazz.
been
I love you
great.
too. Right.
Okay, let's keep in contact, because we got it. The sun is out. We can go on our walk now, so now we can schedule that.
We're done bad. We're done bad. All right. Talk to you soon.
Talk to you soon. Bye, you guys. It's been fun hanging out with you. I'll see you next Friday.